colleague, Mary Miller from the Exploratorium. Mary directs our environmental research and science partnerships programs, bringing us in contact with many science researchers across the state of California and at other locations along the West Coast, and with both national partners as well. She's a webcast producer, host, science writer, journalist, online media producer, and liaises with the scientific community for the Exploratorium to help us bring programming and research views to our informal science education that we offer at our museum. So please welcome Mary.
Thanks, Rob. Many of you probably maybe visited the Exploratorium in the past. We have a, perhaps at our former location that was down by, yeah? How many people have been to the new location? Yay. Okay. I'm going to show you that. So I would just say that the former location, we were kind of, we kind of describe it as we were in a cave. You know, it was pretty dark and cavernous. But this is the location where we're at now. It's along the waterfront in San Francisco, Piers 15 and 17. It has great views of the bay and the city. And it also gives us access to the outdoors, to the bay water, to the weather, to actually natural phenomena. So we knew that this move was giving us an opportunity to really explore environmental sciences in a much deeper way, and to bring that kind of phenomena and those kinds of experiences into the museum and our exhibits and displays and programs as well. But we had a problem in that we did not have a lot of environmental scientists running around the Exploratorium. We were founded by a physicist, so there's lots of physicists and mathematicians, but not ocean scientists, not meteorologists, not atmospheric sciences. So that is the question at the top, why partnerships? And for the Exploratorium, partnerships really allow us to bring in expertise from the fields of research science, technology into the museum to help augment our staff. And it also serves an added benefit for us in that we get to stay in contact with the research world without having to have a lot of folks attend meetings and read journals, science journals all the time. So it gives our audiences an opportunity to know what's going on in the world of science. And it's not just the discoveries of science, but actually the process and how scientists ask questions and answer questions. That's a very important part of what the Exploratorium's mission is. We also really love collaborating and working together because we can leverage and not have to do everything ourselves. So it gives us a lot of opportunities, and we've worked in conjunction with science universities and research, even on proposals, joint proposal development. All right. So I thought this is a really different talk from most of the other talks, so I thought what I could do is tell you a little bit about how partnerships work, how relationships like the kind of collaborations we have work, and I'll use two large examples and a lot of small examples about how that works. So the Exploratorium has always worked with individual scientists, artists, and people who come through our doors or who we meet out in the world, and those are always really wonderful because they're very organic, and they're often project-driven or person-to-person kind of driven. So individual partnerships with scientists and individuals is really important. We also have sort of larger partnerships, and those may be still on a project or program level, but they're a little bit higher up in the organization. And then the kind of partnerships that we established after our move really are the strategic institutional partnerships, and those are a little bit more rare. So we have a lot of relationships and lots of partnerships with groups, but these strategic partnerships are the ones that I'm going to be talking quite a bit about. This is just some examples of some work that we've done with individuals, artist Fujika Nakaya. We have this beautiful art exhibit called the Fog Bridge that was going off more often before California was in a drought, but we still are able to envelop people in fog as they walk across a bridge from one pier to the other. We've had partnerships with individual scientists and labs to develop exhibits, and also educators who come and talk to us about learning, about how people learn. So one of the programs that partnerships really help us with is a program that if you guys were at Cenic last year, I think the last couple years, we've talked about the wired pier. And when we moved, we knew that we needed to really understand our new environment, the local environment of San Francisco Bay. So we decided to sort of be like a research vessel and put a bunch of instruments on it, instruments in the water and on the roof. And so we collect data, we collect live data, we share that data, but we also display it in the museum, and we're working on some exhibits to make the data more interactive. So the wired pier ends up being an important vehicle for us to collaborate with scientists. So we are part of a local network. It's a NOAA Ocean Observatory initiative and ocean observatory system. So there's one in Southern California, Central California, and also in Seattle. So we collect data, share that data, and use data from CENCUS, NANUS, and ESCUS in our programs. And then we have the organizational partnerships, that's what this is, of which Cenic has been a very important one. Because we do a lot of networking, and we really rely on being able to download and bring in large amounts of data. Cenic has been really important, and there's going to be a couple other talks during this conference that will talk specifically about that, about the data visualization and our webcasting programs. Okay. So now we're at the strategic partnership side. And this was really, as I said, when we moved, it was really recognized that we needed to really think about strategically what is very important to our institution, but also seek partners for which there really felt like there was a lot of mutuality. So the strategic partnerships, we knew that we were going to have to limit them. We couldn't have a strategic partnership with everybody because it's a relationship you have to invest in. We wanted them to be long-lasting, so at least 5 years, and 10 years is ending up being kind of what we think will be the most stable and valuable one. And that there's a lot of different parts to the partnership, a lot of different departments and programs within the museum and within the institution. So I'm going to talk first about the partnership that we have with NOAA. So we actually signed our MOU with NOAA before we moved, 3 years before we moved, and it was instituted at the highest level of both with the director of NOAA and the director of the Exploratorium. And it was, as I said, this opportunity to work with the premier premier agency, national agency that really dealt with the kinds of things that we wanted to talk about. Plus, we saw this opportunity, since we're on a pier and there's deep water, that we could actually bring ships alongside, and that provided something the public doesn't usually get to see, which is how does ocean research happen. And the ships at the pier and ships that go away are, and have ended up being a really important part of our programming. NOAA also needed a strategic partner that they could work with to connect with the network of science museums and aquariums. We started working with aquariums as well. So it's mutually beneficial. And this is just some examples of some of the things that we've done with the NOAA partnership. We've actually developed an exhibit that used some data about the storms that hit the West Coast. You may have heard about atmospheric rivers. And it was really the scientists that said the nature of the size of the raindrops and the speed at which they fall is really important to the whole hydrology system in California and the rest of the West Coast works. So we have an exhibit where you can dial a storm, a winter storm, a spring storm. We also do live programs with NOAA ships and other ships at sea, and we bring scientists into the museum to do programs as well. We've been able to visit different NOAA labs, and NOAA scientists have come and spent time in residence at the Exploratorium. It helps them with their science communication. In the upper right hand is, maybe some of you recognize it as the Mauna Loa Observatory. We went up there the one day when there was a snowstorm. We barely got up there. But it's, it's the place where they started first measuring carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, Dave Keeling, and we were looking for a really good location to do a live program about the transit of Venus, and it seems like it's not really connected, but we were working with an artist who was interested in the metaphor of the whole globe, scientists in different locations working together to understand what was happening with the eclipse. And so that became a metaphor for how we need to work together to really look at climate change and how to deal with it as a, both as a science challenge and a human challenge. And one of my favorite parts of the partnership with NOAA so far has been when we went to the Pacific Marine Environment Lab, where they study the carbon content of the ocean. We saw a big, beautiful red and white buoy that was just sitting in the yard. We said, well, why don't you put that at the Exploratorium, then people could see how this kind of research is done. So they outfitted it with instruments and sent it down on a truck, and we got to put it in the lagoon, and now we have a NOAA buoy between Pier 15 and 17 transmitting live data that's part of the NOAA network. So this is just a review of some of the benefits that we've gotten and that NOAA has gotten from the partnership. The second partnership that I wanted to talk about is the one at the very campus where we're at. And again, this was started at a very high level of both our donor community and UC Davis, and it was even though we do work a lot with universities locally, UC Berkeley and Stanford, Davis sort of presented a really interesting opportunity for us because it's a land-grant university, and because the kind of research they do is very human-oriented. It's wine and food and agriculture and medicine, and that these are the kind of things that our public is really interested in. It's not a stretch as much. So for us, it made sense to enter in the second large strategic partnership. And some of the things that we're interested in, as I mentioned, wine, one of my favorite subjects here, but also the sustainability. We have a building that is that was got a LEED Platinum, but it's also our goal to be net zero, where we actually produce as much energy as we use. This is the place, UC Davis, where they really have looked into that and helped, is helping California really become a state in which new projects by 2020, new housing development the goal will be that net zero. So the way we organize the partnerships is we have a vision council that meets 2 to 4 times a year, and it's made up of the highest level, but highest level of the institution plus program people, and we really talk about what do we want to do together, what are our goals, what are some opportunities coming up. And as I said, it's a long-term relationship, and when we think about partners, we think of our institutional partners first. If we need to go into a new area, we have a public program about energy or about food, then we would go to Davis first. I just wanted to touch on just a couple of things that we're thinking about now, because we've been part of Cenic for a while, but after we moved, it took us a while to kind of get all the pieces working together, and even just last week, we got multicast working so we can bring in live video streams. So these are just a few of the things that we've been thinking about of doing that kind of on the cusp of being able to do now. Like hyper-local weather forecast, that we can actually maybe run a small weather model and tell people what goes into it. Using live data and displaying live data is one thing, but what about analyzing it and visualizing it in real time? You know, connecting to remote field locations, we've done that a lot. I think we can do it much more and more organically. And live streaming data. So just before I go, I know I'm kind of running close on time. I wanted to tell one story about a different kind of partnership. And that's about 8 or 9 years ago. I was reading in Science magazine about this, you know, this big NSF project that was getting funded. And I thought, well, that's good, you know, like I'm a liaison, so I think I'll investigate it more. So I called up University of Washington Oceanography Department, and I talked to somebody who was on my level, I thought, a education and outreach person. I said, I'm on vacation in Seattle. I'd like to come and visit because I want to hear about this new project that's you know, soon to be launched by NSF. So this is the project, the Ocean Observatories Initiative. One of the people who this was the vision is John Delaney, who's here. And when I came to Seattle with my sister and my little baby in tow, just to kind of hear, like, what are your plans for education and outreach, John himself greeted me, made me an espresso, and sat me down and told me about his vision for this network of instruments on the bottom of the ocean and cameras on the bottom of the ocean, and I was completely hooked. And since then, have been thinking about how can we use this in the museum. So this morning at 8 o'clock, I woke up and I turned on the website for University of Washington. And they have a live camera on the bottom of the ocean that's sending video of a community in the deep sea. And I don't know, I don't know if this makes you guys excited, but I'm just kind of stunned by this. I mean, I'm used to ships and ROVs going out, and I know ahead of time, but this is down there all the time. Every 3 hours, it sends 14 minutes of video, and you can look at it and see what's happening on the bottom of the ocean, and it's amazing. So streaming video is one thing, but then there's also this ability with all the instruments there to actually do the visualization of data. So I borrowed some slides from John, so I'm showing some of John's slides. I hope you weren't planning on showing those tomorrow, John. But these are instruments that actually analyze the genetic content of organisms in the water. So say you have an event, maybe it's a harmful algal bloom or some kind of event in the water where you get this wash of organisms, and they go through the sensor, and the sensor breaks apart the cells, and whoops, this is not working. Is it not working? It breaks apart the cells, and it actually analyzes the genetic makeup. And so it breaks apart the cells and does analysis on it, takes a picture of it, and sends it up. And so you understand what are the organisms that are in there, what is the unique capability, what are the population. And the thing about this is it shows it in context. It's not just, just the CAGT genetic makeup. So for me, I think this is what we're on the edge of now, being able to let the public see this in real time, make discoveries, and really understand what's going on. So I want to thank everybody for being here, but I also want to say there's a lot of us from the Exploratorium. I want people who are from the Exploratorium to kind of stand up or wave your hands or something, because we are really about collaboration. We really want to We really want to talk with people that are here and hear ideas about what's going on and see if we can make some connections, and we're all excited to be here, so thank you so much. Do we have any? 5 minutes for questions. We have a little bit of time for questions, yay.
Thanks. I really like the metagenome analysis thing that you just described. Are you taking chemical readings and things like that too, so you could see if chemical changes in the seawater caused, say, the algal bloom or something like that? I mean, can you? I guess you could measure fertilizer runoff. You could do all kinds of stuff with that.
Yeah, so this is the deep sea. So fertilizer runoff's probably
right,
not the most thing, but yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of sensors on the Ocean Observatory, and one thing that we felt like was a good way for us to connect with them is that we have a lot of the same instruments as well. So what is the carbon content or oxygen content of San Francisco Bay have to do with the deep sea? So through the data, I think we can sort of make those connections and talk about the relationship more of the whole ocean and not just of little regions of the ocean. But yeah, so there's a full panoply of instruments, chemical and physical. No other question? Okay. Great. Thank you so much.